What is up, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome to another episode of Avenue A, where we talk acting, networking, and the arts industry as a whole. I am your host, Kelsey Bentz, and for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, welcome. So happy to have you here. A little bit about Avenue A, if this is your first time. It's just a live stream platform and show that I created right after I graduated from acting school, straight out into this current moment, otherwise known as the pandemic. And I was searching for ways to stay connected with my fellow artists in this current moment, I guess, where we're all navigating new ways of being and new modes of communication. So Avenue A was a platform that I built to not only stay connected with my fellow artists, but also create a resource for other young artists who are making their way into the artistic industry. And we've had 29 amazing episodes so far. So I'm so excited to be here again with you all. Greetings, NLTMW. That is Mike. Thank you so much for tuning in, Mike. It's great to see you here. Dana, woohoo! I love Sarah's website. Oh my gosh, you're telling me. So our guest tonight, her name is Sarah Kleist. And like Dana said, her website is out of this world. And she is, let me just tell you a little bit about her. We'll bring her on. And I'm so excited to have a chat with her. So Sarah Kleist is a New York City-based zillennial with a degree in musical theater, an internet connection, an obsession with everything personal development, and a knack for turning ideas into reality. She believes that most people are just one connection away from realizing their biggest dreams. As a web designer, she's on a mission to make sure you're ready when that moment arises with a fierce website that looks, feels, and sounds like you. And I can tell you her website is exactly that. I mean, you go there and it's mind-blowing. It's amazing. And I'll drop the link for that at the end of the episode so y'all can check it out. Sarah is a multi-passionate. She is also an actor, pop rock skrelter, and a self-described deadpan Debbie. She's inspired by contemporary storytelling, whether it's an old tale told in a cutting-edge way, innovative way, or a narrative that looks, feels, and sounds more modern. She believes that the way to reach today's audiences is to bring them characters they can relate to. Amen. Sarah believes that art and media have the power to change hearts, minds, and even votes. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest tonight, Sarah Kleist. Hi, Sarah.
Hi. It's funny to just be like welcomed in like that. Hello.
And I could have honestly gone on for so long. I mean, you have such a vast array of experience and things that you have done, specifically, you know, how you've spent the last 9 months in quarantine. And I'm so excited to get into that a little more with you. So can you tell us a little bit more about your foray from full-time musical theater performing into your multi-hyphenate career that now includes, you know, web design, brand building, and the like? What inspired the expansion for you?
Okay, well, firstly, before the pandemic, I was like many artists working in a restaurant and had worked there for a really long time. And, even though I enjoyed the people I worked with and there was very much like a family dynamic there, I had known for a while that I needed to find something else to use my creativity in a way that was just different. And also, everyone knows like there are down seasons in the acting world, and you're not always going to be able to pay your bills on just that unless you're like Meryl Streep. So, I was like on the hunt for a while for other things that I could do that used my storytelling skills, that, sort of felt like I was helping people in a way that was just different than a restaurant job. Yeah. And so one of my goals actually for 2020, which I really set in like 2019, was like to figure out what that was. And then the pandemic kind of gave me a chance to really like dig into that goal. Basically I just started in March and April. I was like, okay, what do I even like? Like, what am I obsessed with? What am I drawn to? And, as many of us in the beginning of the pandemic, I spent most of my time on Instagram, and I was like, okay, what's catching my eye on Instagram? And I was like, oh, like any of these Instagrams where it's just like super fierce aesthetics, like where people have like a gorgeous feed. I was like, I love this. Why do I love this? And then I realized it's because I just like am really into aesthetics and like what they say about the person behind them.
Yeah.
So that led me down like a whole rabbit hole about like brand. And then I like, long story short, tried everything in the marketing world. Like I was like, what different pieces are in the marketing world? And finally was like, web design. I'm really good at this. So I like really doubled down on that. And here we are.
Here we are. And I have to say, your website is truly nothing like I've ever seen before. And I mean that so seriously. Like even corporations who have like a full team who I'm sure are designing their sites, it's not as streamlined and easy on the eye and like identifiable as your site. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you. That's nice.
You're welcome. And so once you figured out your own brand and you sort of nailed down like, okay, web design is the thing, then you started a business with it, right? And now you're taking clients and you're actually helping other people develop their own brands. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, well, that's the thing is like, I feel like I was always really in tune with what my brand as an actor was. Like, that is something that I felt like I've always been like, I know exactly what I'm good at. Like, whenever I was sent in for roles, like, they were always perfect. Like, I never had a problem like communicating who I am really. In that sense, I just didn't know I could do it for other people or like how I could do it for other people.
Yeah.
So back in like May or June, I reached out to a few of my close friends and I was like, hey, so I have this idea and I want to start doing websites. Do you mind? And if you hate what I do, don't have to use it. But can I make you a website? And they were like, yeah, sure, why not? And so I made a few websites for my friends and they were like, wait, whoa, like this is like 10 million times better than my website currently.
Yeah.
So I was like, great, I'm gonna do like 5 of these for like my very close friends, just for free, just to like experiment and see if I liked it. And then before I was even done with all 5, I had other people who had seen those sites like messaging me asking for like my rates.
Yeah.
So I spent like the last 6 months really of 2020 just like faking my way through entrepreneurship really. And like just like doing this whole new business moment, which now I'm learning more and more like strategies about, but really the first 6 months of it were just like me just like going along with it every day.
Yeah, throwing it together. I so relate to that. Like that's what this pandemic has been, anything. I think we're all like discovering new modes of doing things, especially artists, because you have to. And it's all about like, okay, what's the new challenge today's going to bring and how am I going to like conquer it?
Yes.
So in those original 5 websites that you were like with your close friends, how were you communicating their brands? Like, was it just sort of because you knew them so well, you were like, okay, I think that this is what this person's site would look like and this person, or were you consulting with them in a different way? Did you have questions you asked them?
Well, with my close friends, like I guess it's different when you're like close friends with someone you like know. Like
Yeah.
all of my close friends, like I know exactly the kinds of roles they go in for, you know. And
Yeah.
it wasn't even like all artists. Like one of them was a course creator friend of mine, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what her brand is because like this is like what she teaches and blah blah blah. So with my close friends, it was easier. As it got to like people that I didn't know, I had to like develop a questionnaire and like figure out how I was like going to get to the bottom of these people. But I think like having like Zoom meetings with people, having like a little bit of a sense of, you know, what kind of clothes they wear in real life, or like what their house looks like, or what their favorite like Instagram feed is, or what their, you know, if they had a Pinterest board of like their dream aesthetic, what would it be? And like using those methods to kind of get into, you know, who they are and what they like and what they feel like as a person. That's how I figured it out so far. But yeah, with my close friends at first, I was like, oh, this is like easier because I know you.
Sure, that makes total sense. As you were talking, like I was drawing a total amazing parallel between like when you're taking on a role as an actor, right? And you're researching the character and you're figuring out, okay, what do they wear and like how do they speak and what's their personality like? And you do all that research as an actor, right? When you're portraying a character. And it's so similar, like when you're talking about, you know, you're studying your clients and seeing like, okay, what is their wardrobe and like how do they speak? And it's the same thing. And then you take that and process it and then create a totally different end product, right? Like it's a website instead of a performance, but it's so similar, which is awesome.
That is so fascinating because I've never thought of that before. So that just like blew my mind, honestly. But I was like when I think about websites, like I think they are storytelling, it's just a different format. And so for me, it's like when I'm trying to build someone's site or a site for anything, whether it's like a business or like an entrepreneur or a coach or something, I'm like thinking about like what the audience is essentially seeing and what they need to see when, and how to take them to the next thing. And like that's what I'm thinking of when I think of storytelling in a form of a website. But what you just said just blew my whole mind, and now I have to like sit and think about this for the next 2 weeks. So
but okay, what you like your response to it though, in terms of that you're thinking about the audience and like what the viewer experience is, that's also the same thing as performing, right? Like we're always thinking like, okay, how is the audience, what's the relationship to the audience, right? With being on stage. Ooh, I have chills. This is so cool. What an exciting conversation. Okay, follow-up question though. Obviously, you know that like being an actor takes an incredible amount of hustle, you know, like trying to make a living at it and be an actor takes an incredible amount of effort and time and hustle. So I'm wondering, like, now that you're CJ says hello from your next client. I love it. I love it. Yes. So I'm wondering how, now that you're taking on other things like your web designing and you're taking other time consuming projects on, how are you balancing like time spent, you know, being an actor? I know it's different now because we're in the pandemic, obviously. But can you talk a little bit about that?
So that's a great question because I have often been like, how am I going to do this when the world comes back? But I think it actually was like such a blessing that this happened now and I was able to start this now because I spent like those first websites that I did, I spent 12 hours a day, like fleshing through all the problems and learning things about, you know, all the different platforms, and just like, it was really so much time. And now a website does not take me as much time as it did before.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it feels like now every time I do a website, I learn something new, which makes it easier for the next time. Right. So I'm hoping by the time that the whole world comes back, I'm able to just like balance that more. But yeah,
Mm.
I'm like, I don't feel like this would have been possible to grow this fast. I think at least had we just been in normal life for me, I think that would have been too much.
Yeah, I think so too. And there may not have been even a reason for you to pursue these things. You know, like I think this moment has forced all of us to like sit with ourselves and be like, okay, either I have an identity crisis or I try to, you know, move forward and learn something new and I don't know, try and muddle
Yes.
our way through because we can't
Yes,
be on stage.
totally.
Yeah. So on that
Exactly.
note, you know, I've known you for a few years now, mostly from
Mhm.
afar, mostly from like social media and following each other. But you are an artist who has just always exuded such passion and you're such a hustler. And it really comes through in like the way that it seems like you communicate with the world, which I just greatly respect, first of all. So I'm wondering, has the pandemic shifted your artistic identity or like the way you relate to your own artistic identity? And if so, how?
Ooh, okay, so definitely yes. There was actually like a time in the pandemic for a few months that, you know, I the more people I talk to about this, I feel like the more people are like, yeah, I had that too, or like I had that same
Mm.
fear. But like there was a time, I don't think I feel this way right now, but in the past few months where I've been like, do I even like theater anymore? I like don't feel like singing. I don't feel like acting. All of this seems fruitless. This feels exhausting. Like, and that was like scary because obviously for most of us, like being an artist is like such a huge part of our identity. And like without it, who are we?
Right.
Um, and but then but then I watched the Thanksgiving Day parade and I was like awakened again with like excitement and joy. And I was like, oh, it's just because I'm not seeing it. And like
Yeah.
I'm just like not, there's obviously, I used to see a Broadway show like once to twice a month. And
Yeah.
like now, you know, I just feel like that was so vital for me to keep the passion on. And I just, because we've been out of it so long, I like keep forgetting what it's like to like sit in a dark room with a bunch of people telling stories. So like, I don't know. So that has been weird. But luckily, my boyfriend is a music producer, and a lot of composers are still being very prolific in this time because this is actually like a great time for them to be writing.
Right.
And so I've been singing on like some demos and some projects. So my art hasn't completely left, but the actual like theatrical part, like God, some days I'm just like, I can't believe we all ever like went to an audition and like sat there and memorized the lines
Right.
and
And like got up at 3 a.m. to go wait in line for the open call.
I don't, first of all, I don't think that should ever happen again. That seems,
I
after a
agree.
health crisis, that seems like the first thing that needs to go. But yeah,
Yes.
I I don't know how we all ever did that some days. And
I know.
other days I'm like, oh, I'm excited to get back. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think a big part of like what you're talking about too, at least in my experience, was this like great grieving process for the loss of theater. You know, like obviously it'll be back, you know, but just this indefinite period of time where we can't really do what we're used to doing. And like with the just emotional toll that like a national health crisis, a global health crisis takes on you, you don't really feel like setting up your camera and singing a song about a guy you like or whatever, you know, musical theater song you're supposed to sing for your audition. Like in my experience, at least, I just felt so detached from that. And that was a really sad feeling, right? Because in the
Yeah.
past, it didn't necessarily ever feel like that, I think. And doing those self tapes and going into auditions and taking classes was way more of a lifeblood. Whereas during the pandemic, I think for a lot of us, I've been hearing it felt exactly the opposite, right? Like an additional drain in this already draining time, which is such a tragic feeling as a performer and an artist, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think though that like so many of us, I've seen so many of my artist friends like doing so many new projects and introducing new like passions into their life. And I think a lot of the people that I've witnessed or seen, like people like you, or like people like my friend Carly, who like now runs this like badass course, like I feel like it has given us a confidence in a different way where I feel like before, at least in my mind, like my validation was based off of my, like how I was doing in the acting world solely.
Yes.
And now we've all had to find other ways to like bring value and purpose into our lives. And now that we have other things, I think it's gonna be really interesting to go back, because I'm gonna walk into an audition room as like someone who like is a badass web designer, like, you know,
Yes.
not to be like egotistical, but like before, like I felt like I was like walking into a room and being like, I'm just an actor, like please hire me. And now all these other people are coming up with all these new ideas and projects, or like putting themselves into other passions, and we can walk into rooms and be like, yeah, I'm an actor, but if you don't hire me, I'm just gonna go do this other thing I like too. Like that's what's cool about the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And that gives such a sense of like calm, I think, in a lot of ways. And just going back to before what you said about, you know, you weren't sure if you would have gone into these other areas like web design and brand building and all of that if the pandemic hadn't happened. It's fascinating. And I think you're definitely right. Like when we do move back into in-person spaces and auditions, and I can't wait for that day. But I do hope, and I think you're right, that we'll be walking into rooms with a different energy because we don't have anything to lose, right? In a great sense. Yeah.
And also just like I've seen like, you know, so many casting directors' homes now, like when they are like on a Zoom or like, and I'm like, oh, you can't like pretend to be like higher than me now because we all live in our like shitty New York apartments. Like the playing field has like leveled. We're like all human beings who like, whose industry got shut down. Like we all, I don't know. I'm just like fascinated because I feel like whatever like power game there was before, I feel like that's gone. That can never exist again.
The dynamics have totally shifted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think, level playing field is so true, especially like in the early days of the pandemic where you knew for a fact, like everyone was just on their couch. In the days where we were all kind of frozen, right? And just like wondering, okay, how long is this going to last? Like feeling everything out. I would sit there a lot and be like, you know, I know exactly where some of the biggest celebrities are. They're in their homes, just like me.
Literally.
Which was such a mind-blowing concept, right?
Yes. I'm actually grateful for that in that sense. Like, I don't know. I feel like our industry in particular needed like a reality check. And I feel like it needed to be brought into 2020. And I feel like this is actually really helping at that.
I think so too.
Obviously, very detrimental for lives and you know, many other reasons, but if we're gonna like see it in a glass half full type of way, I hope it's gonna be a helpful shift for this industry.
I hope so too. I think especially speaking on theater, there was a lot of like customs, I guess, or like old school like ways of doing things, like the open call at 3 a.m. I don't know who thought that was like efficient or good, or if that was just sort of like this is a rite of passage or something, you know? And I sure hope, I agree that they should go away. I did one when I was in school and I was like, okay, I know I'm going to be doing these, so I should probably go like while I'm in college. And I went there and I was like, pretty sure I'm never going here again.
It's also, I feel like I rarely went, but I always felt guilty if I didn't, because it seemed like everyone else was, and it seemed like you had to be.
And that was part of the culture and part of the hustle and part like, I definitely understand that. So we kind of already talked about this, but the last thing I want to just really pick your brain about is, you know, we've been discussing how we're all living through this moment of just like wanting to go back to theater and longing for the days past, but also sort of trying to see the glass half full for what the future of theater can be. So what do you see as the future of theater and performance once we're able to be back in a live space during this like very digital age?
Ooh, yeah. Well, I feel like there's the theater that I would like to see, and then there's the theater that will be.
Ooh,
I feel like what we need now is like more stories that connect us in less of like what you were saying before about you don't want to sing like a song about having a crush on a boy or whatever for a self-tape. Like we don't, whatever story that is, like we don't need that in my version. Like I'm like, bring us back like the hard hitters, like people working through shit. Like we need to be able to relate to that. What I think will happen though is I unfortunately think that in order to get Broadway back, they're just going to hire a whole bunch of celebrities, and that's what we're going to have to deal with for the next few years. But past that, I think it's going to be okay. But I think that's going to be a hurdle, just logistically speaking.
Yeah, I didn't actually think about that, but now that you've said it, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Which, you know, if it helps, it's not necessarily a bad thing if the end goal is to like get audiences back. But just the reality that I think a lot of actors are going to have to face, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you're right. And what do you perceive as the, like, obviously the digital mode of communication, like everyone's so good at it now, you know, it's like everyone knows how to do Zoom. Everyone knows how to, you know, I feel like everyone's branding has gotten so much better simply from, you know, they're being forced to navigate technology. So what do you see as the future of this once it's not 100% necessary to use anymore?
I don't think people will go back to like normal life. Like, I was thinking like, if I were to start doing web design in normal life, like, I don't think it would occur to me to use Zoom or anything to have meetings. I feel like I'd be like, let's meet at this coffee shop at this time. And I feel like I would spend, you know, half an hour on the train getting there, and then I would spend a half an hour on the train going back, and I would like waste so much time. Yes. And like, why would anyone do that now when you could schedule meetings back to back if you needed to and not waste the half an hour on the commute. Like, so I think that is what is going to change this whole thing. Like, I think there will be in-person events, and there should be. Obviously, we all want to like see other human beings, but I think when it comes down to like business and all of that kind of stuff, I think for sure this is here to stay.
Yeah. Mike says global audience with no commute or long distance phone bills. That's so true, Mike. It's amazing like who we can reach in this age. Talk to us, Sarah. What platform do you design websites on? Great question.
So I use Squarespace and Showit. My website's on Showit. I actually like it a whole lot better than Squarespace because there's a lot more creative freedom. However, it depends on what kind of site you need it for. But yeah, I think both options are great. Showit's a little bit more expensive. Squarespace is a little cheaper, but there's less freedom there. But both can give you a good experience and have, you know, great design elements. They're just different.
Got it. And on that point, if anyone wants to check out Sarah's amazing, like multi-layered website, please go check her out, www.sarahkleist.com. And have fun, everyone, because trust me, it's a great website. And then for anyone who wants to find Sarah on social and follow her on Instagram, she's at Sarah Kleist. And then also on TikTok at @skleist, you have a TikTok that you made recently that has over 3.9 million views now.
Yeah, because every time I make a TikTok about other people's businesses, they get like such traction. And every time I talk about mine, no one cares.
I love it. For reference, really for everyone watching, Sarah made a TikTok video about a specific planner company. What's the name of the company?
It's called Golden Coil, and it's like customizable planners, and it's the best. They're a little expensive, but they feel so good in your hands, and like Oh, I love them. And I made this video about them and everyone else loves them too.
3.9 million views, mind blowing what TikTok can do.
Truly a wild app.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on Avenue A. It was such a pleasure to pick your brain and chat with you. And you just bring this amazing, warm, grounded energy that I just appreciate so much. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on. This was such a pleasure.
You're very welcome. All right. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
Bye. Oh my gosh. That was just, I hope that everyone watching got a lot out of that, because I feel like Sarah has so much to offer and so much like wisdom and thoughtfulness to bring. So yeah, thanks for being here. Nadine says hi from Portland. Hi, Nadine. Thanks so much for tuning in. It looks like we got a lot of amazing comments. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. I see Todd in the comments. Dana. Thank you, Dana. Dana's my producer. Shout out. Mike. We have Grandma. Hi, Grandma. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Happy holidays. I hope you enjoyed my upgraded logo for Christmas. I'm feeling in the holiday spirit, if you will. So I thought I'd give my logo a little zhuzh. Anyway, I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We will not be here next week because I will be again in an extended food coma after the holidays. But we will see you in the new year with another amazing episode. So thanks for tuning in and have a great weekend.